To me, there's nothing better than a whole slew of brand new OEM parts about to go on that engine, making it just as good as it was when it rolled off the factory assembly line. We now have the new O-rings to go here in the VVT-i gear so we can get this stuff put back together. But before that, I'm gonna run this cam cap through the ultrasonic cleaner with some fresh Dawn dish soap for degreasing and get that thing all cleaned up. And then we're gonna get this side of the cylinder head all cleaned up as much as we can. All this stuff around here, get this off, take this plastic cover off, get the 2 half moons out on that side as well, and get this one put back together. Then I need to brake clean bath this whole thing. We need to get rid of all this old green coolant. We have a new crankshaft seal, so we can replace that. And then we need to copy paste the whole process on the other side that you saw in the other video when I tore this one down. So if you haven't seen this, make sure to go check out the previous video in the LS project. So I ran the main cam cap through the ultrasonic cleaner and it looks incredible. No goop or junk of any kind. Looks awesome. So now it's time for a brake clean bath. Ah, it's going everywhere. Already looking better. Got a brand new package here of Toyota FIPG, which is basically like their gray RTV, but it is super, super good stuff. And we're gonna need this because we got to put this cap back in the front of the cylinder head. These 2 half moons go in the back. And then we have our new seals and stuff for the camshaft. So let's get this stuff put back together. There's a ridiculous number of parts in here, and I need to find the little filter that goes under that main cam cap on the cylinder head so that I don't forget that. Where is it? There we are. It's these little things right here. So there's a plastic cap over it we need to remove. There is the part number. And in the cylinder head, this little guy just sits right down in there, just like so. First, brand new OEM part going back on. Dang, I guess I need to invest in some Vice soft jaws because it seems like our Vice took a couple of bites here out of the cam, but I think that's probably when I was trying to get this bolt off and it was so difficult. I invested in a soft jaw. So before we start reassembling this whole VVT solenoid, we need to get our brand new OEM camshaft seal on here. And this is very simple. Just need to line it up and then you just push it on with your fingers. And it just needs to sit right in line with the edge there. One side of this is gonna mate up to the cylinder head itself and the other side is going to go inside the cam cap and it's gonna rest right in here. So this little extra exposed area is totally fine. And in fact, you can even see it here. You can see that line where the seal sits. You wanna make sure that you do this first because once this gear is in place, you can no longer slip that seal over it. So we'll go ahead and just drop this gear down onto the cam and it can just sit down there for now. I'm gonna just wipe off this portion of the cam. Just make sure we have no debris in there. So then we'll just slide on our assembly, this tube assembly here. There's no keys on this particular part. This gear and then the top hat are keyed, so that will kind of help us get it aligned. And then the splines on this gear, of course, as we know, will match the other cam, and that's how we can kind of connect this all back together. So let's go ahead and get our gear here positioned. I'm just gonna finger thread one of the bolts in, one of these small little black ones, so that we don't lose our gear here. Let's go ahead and flip this around so we can get the rest of the bolts in and tighten this down. Damn it. This just slid off. Nothing is damaged, luckily, but don't do that. Unless I'm forgetting something. It seems like I can just take this whole torque tube assembly like this and just tighten it right here on the bench. A couple of these small little bolts got chewed up, so I did buy some new ones. There's the part number on those. Then we also have this gasket here, which is the one on the other end where the big bolt goes through this assembly. And the torque spec on all these is very low, so we're not gonna go crazy with this. Once this is on the cam, we'll give it another good snug down, but that'll be fine. And then our new oil safe O-ring, this is M2 by 77. Just lay that down in there. Our spring goes in, and then this assembly will go in. I'm going to match up this here. Unfortunately, I did have some marks that I lost in the ultrasonic cleaner, sadly, but I think we'll be fine here. Going to basically push this down, line it up dead center, like that. Make sure it's fully lined up. right where we want it, right in the center. And then we're gonna use this bolt hole to the right of that little notch. All right, 2 more. And what I'm doing is I'm looking just right where there's a little outline of where this washer used to sit. So then this one just goes right in here. I'm gonna push down on this to line it up a bit. Just like that. And that one's slightly off. Let's see. It's like we shifted a little bit. One thing I wanted to double check was that I have the bolts all in the right place. So in relation to our little stub here, we're gonna go bolt, skip a hole, bolt, skip 2, bolt, skip, bolt. So I can go ahead and just tighten these down. Torque spec's very low, so again, I'm just gonna hand tighten these. These are T30. Oh, you can kind of feel them pretty much bottom out. And in comes our reassembled torque tube assembly here. So we're just gonna drop this back on like that. There we go. There's our key. Since we can see that key is lined up in there, we're gonna give this a couple of love taps so it's seated down. There we go. You can see that key is much more flush with the top of that, and the kind of the inside of this gear here. Next up is this bolt, 10mm Allen. Nice and snugged. Can't find a torque spec for that specific bolt, so I just went until it felt nice and tight. Then we have this little seal here, which is pretty interesting. It's got like kind of a copper or metal kind of backing, and then there's a little rubber gasket in the middle. And the part number on that is the 25002. And then our big old cap goes on. And actually this would be easier just to slot over like so. Make sure it's nice and seated all the way around. And then this big cap goes on the end of the camshaft. No 10,000 pounds of RTV required. 19 mil right here. Guten snug. There we have it. One restored and rebuilt camshaft. So cool. Brand new seal, brand new O-ring, gasket here, so we're not gonna get profuse leaking out of the front end of this camshaft. So this should be ready to lay back down in the engine and align our gear here. Got these couple of covers going back on. All right, so I'm not gonna lie, this part of this particular job is really kind of what kept me up at night the most, just trying to figure out how the heck am I going to line this stuff back up, these two gears. Must not be that hard because the repair manual doesn't spend much time on it. So let's go ahead and just see what we can finagle here. I'll try to get this like mostly lined up. Where's our single dot? There's double, so single is over here. And that's gonna need to come out here. And then single dot, kind of like walk it in. Oh wow, okay, that was easy. Just gotta make sure this cam is seated properly. Yeah, this one is pushing down, so maybe we can turn it up a little bit. There we go. So we have our single dot lined up, but when we do that, you can see that we're not actually seated in the grooves of the cylinder head, and part of that is because this particular cam lobe is pushing down on the little buckets. So if I turn it up slightly, it gets closer. So I think what I'm gonna do, like for example, if I turn the cam here using my 24 up, it falls closer into place, which is good. I think that's what I'm gonna do. I think I'm gonna go from here, dots are close to aligning but not all the way, and then get the cam caps on. Every single cam cap is labeled and has an orientation, so the arrow needs to point towards the front of the engine this way, and then there's intake 2, which is going to go right there, because intake 1 is the big old cam cap up there. So that's gonna go here, intake 3, intake 4, intake 5. Then I'm just going to thread the bolts in lightly, and we're just going to tighten them down quarter turn at a time, just progressively in the correct order to help pull our camshaft straight down and not put too much pressure. Then of course, this cam cap is the one that has the crossover pipe right here for the oil feed. So it goes like that. Just run these down. Got my gun here on the lowest impact setting, so I'm just gonna run these down until there's no, just a little bit of resistance. We're not actually gonna tighten them. I'm just gonna run these down lightly by hand according to this, because of course we don't have our main cap in just yet. And the reason we don't is because it requires FIPG, so I wanna have that applied and ready to drop in. We're just gonna get these two snug down, because they're already on the other cam. And then this torque sequence here is gonna go 5, we're just gonna go quarter turn at a time on each one. 5, 6, then 7 and 8, then 9 and 10, and then this one over here. Okay, and then we're just gonna repeat that process from the inside out. Finally, they're all snug down. So now what I should be able to do is turn this back and this down. And there we can see that when I turn that camshaft around, we have our single dots lining up, which is exactly what we wanted. Still got our service bolt in here, which we can leave for now just to be safe, but we need to go ahead and just snug these up a little bit more. Then we'll get our main cam cap on with the FIPG, and then we'll torque these down and make sure to revisit these as well since we loosened those. Torque specs are very, very low. 16 Newton meters or 12 foot-pounds for all bolts except the short one, the 25 mil one. That one is 69 inch-pounds. So I mean, realistically, like just by hand is fine. You don't need anything crazy. Such little torque spec on all these. All right, so next up, we need to apply our FIPG to that inner groove of this little cap that goes on the end of the exhaust camshaft. And then according to the diagram, we need to also put FIPG on the surfaces of this main cap, but it's very specific on where it wants you to put it. So we can see here, it says do not put it in the grooves. You can see on the top part of the illustration, it says seal packing right around those edges. So if we kind of compare, we're gonna put it sort of where you see some of this excess that I still need to wipe off here, but it's right around, it's on that upper left edge, then it skips where the camshaft sort of small piece is, that little piece I just showed you, then it goes around that left bend and then just down the right side. So not that much really on the main cap. Well, I wasn't recording, but I got the FIPG in that center groove on this thing. Don't use too much of this. You don't need to overdo it. And this one goes right here. There's a notched part right here and that goes down. So we're gonna take this, push that right in like so. So then just like the illustration, we're gonna go out here along this edge. If I can get it started, there we go. Go right in here, along this edge, right to there. Similar story, right along here, and then all the way down this right side. Just like that. Oh no, the light's dying. There we go. And let's get our bolts. There's 3 different lengths of bolts here. That one, really long one goes right here, I believe. Another really long one here. Wrong place, this one goes here. The longest of the 2 go right there. And then the shortest of the 2 go on the outside edges. So let's run those down. Then we'll round this off by hand. Same thing, inside out. Just lightly running it down. Yeehaw! It's looking so good. Now that we have that cap installed, I think I'm gonna go ahead and take out this service bolt because if I forget it, that's going to be pretty much the worst disaster I could possibly think of. Just make sure not to drop that secondary washer. I had to get a second washer on here so that it didn't run all the way down and bottom out. There we go. All right. Nothing exploded, good news. And there you can see the FIPG seeping on a little bit, so I'm gonna clean that little bit off. I'm gonna put a fresh drop there when we go to put the valve cover on. This little half moon area right here where this cap meets the head on both sides is prone to leaking, and this right here, so we wanna make sure to put a fresh coat on right before we stick the valve cover on, which I think we're getting pretty close to being able to do, but I don't wanna let this dry. All right, so front end of the engine is looking pretty good here. Let's go ahead and get our camshaft timing belt wheel on here. That one's keyed right there. So let's go ahead and move on to getting this valve cover in because I don't think there's anything that will prevent us from putting those half moons in. I just need to clean off this surface here all the way around, and then we'll get this valve cover back on. Next up, we need to finish prepping this valve cover, get these spark plug tubes in. I already got the other ones out. Sadly, these little tabs are very mangled, so I'm gonna do my best to get them back down. It'll be fine. I just hate knowing that this is so messed up. We'll do what we can though. Okay, so it goes in like this. The little notch side goes down. So we're just gonna lay this in here. Kind of get it in with your thumbs, and then like a 30 millimeter axle nut socket is enough to just lightly tap it in from there. Just use a little brass drift. Then repeat 3 more times. Viola. Time for the valve cover gasket to go on. Just kind of lay this in where it goes. It'll just fall into place. Now before we can put the valve cover back on, we got to get our little half moons in, which means a layer of FIPG down the middle, and then those are going to get dropped in like that. Then after that, we're going to put a little bit of FIPG just right along the edges on that joint there, and then we can drop the valve cover back in. First one going in, and number 2. And we're going to take just a smidge right on the edges of each one, just like that. Lightly spread it with my finger. We want to apply just a little bit extra over here in these corners. And some people like to go around this little groove as well. Just a thin little layer of extra. Now just double checking, got those in. We got cam cap on, tighten down. We should just be able to drop this right in. Now our spark plug tubes are like oval shaped for some reason in some of these spots. I ran into the same problem when I did my Land Cruiser. And the only way that I found to fix it is to get a little flathead and guide spark plug tube onto the spark plug tube gasket. I'm gonna like keep constant pressure on it or you lose the other ones. I think that's good. Let's get these bolts on and run them down. Brand new bolts because they got a little rubber washer on the bottom. All right, then we're just gonna run these down from the center out. Woohoo, we're all snugged up. The other thing I meant to mention is that I went ahead and made sure that our cam alignment mark was back on the T, because of course we're working after the top dead center mark right there. So our cam is in the right position and everything should be good here. Now that we have our valve cover on, I feel a lot better because the engine is not exposed with just, open to let debris in. Get our PCV hose on and we'll be good there. Now I just got to repeat the whole process again on the other side. And for you, that'll happen right now. So I'm working on the driver's side now, and the service manual specifically states on the driver's side that you have to get the cams lined up with the 2 dot mark. So you can see in there on those gears, there's 2 dots instead of the other side, which has 1. If you recall, on the right-hand side, we aligned the 1, but on the left-hand side, the service manual states the 2. Now, the interesting thing is I had to turn the cams over quite a bit, and in fact, in relation to our timing mark on the gear, we're way, way off now. In fact, I don't even know where it is. It's all the way under. You can see we had to go a full turn over to get that there. So I wanted to point that out. A little nerve-wracking at first, but that's how it states. So when we take the cam out and put it back in, we'll just have to make sure to turn this back over before we put the timing belt on. Here's the other valve cover going in. Absolutely horrifically disgusting. And tons of varnish on the other side. And in dirty water, because I just cleaned all of those parts for the other side. Let's do this. And of course, when it comes back out, it looks amazing. So good. Not quite as clear of all the varnish as the other one, but this one is the side that has the PCV on it, so not surprised about that. This thing is awesome. So we're making really good progress on all this stuff, both sides in terms of camshafts, valve covers, FIPG'd, all that stuff that we need to worry about up here is done. And we have even more parts that just arrived. This is the batch of stuff that I ordered from Japan because this power steering reservoir was significantly cheaper. And of course it's genuine Toyota stuff. We also have various connectors, quite a few of those. The ones that I broke, luckily were all still available. This is another power steering hose. This is something hose. I actually don't even know. I can't remember now. This was one of the things on top of the engine for the PCV that I broke. And then the water diverter valve up on the firewall that broke when I tried to take the hose off. And then the transmission filter. Some of that stuff is not really useful for us yet because there was a couple more things that I wanted to do here before we start putting the timing belt on. I had to place another order for these bolts, which will take a few days, of course. But one thing I noticed is that the oil pump is actually just FIPG or RTV'd on. And I think I want to take that off because I'm going to be replacing this crunt frank seal anyway. And I want to reseal all this. So then it becomes this cascade of things. So to get that oil pump off, we have to unbolt the oil pickup tube. And to do that, we have to get the lower pan off and the upper pan off, which sounds like a lot, but both of those things I want to reseal anyway, because I mean, we can see that the gasket maker there is kind of wet. Who knows from what? But then if we look in here, it's disgusting down in there. So that is definitely seeping. And then also I have brand new motor mounts. I went ahead and ordered these. OEM Toyota motor mounts and transmission mount, because of course if you watched my Celsior series, you'll recall how big of a difference it made just to the vibration and overall ride quality, and I have no doubt that this one will as well, especially because one of those is broken and torn, which I'll show you at some point later. Now back to resealing all this stuff. In order to do that, I am not really able to disconnect the transmission yet because the whole timing belt assembly can't go on just yet, because of course I want to pull the oil pump off, which means I can't put the crankshaft gear back on. So I think what I'm going to do is leave that in place, because I'm not going to be able to do that for a couple more days. And then I'm just going to use the engine crane, since it's still attached, lift that up, support the transmission, and then I'm just going to work kind of from underneath down here with the engine suspended. So this should be plenty high enough for us to work, but now I just need to equalize the transmission in the back so we're not sitting like this. I just want to lift everything up. I think I'll just use my regular floor jack for that. Oh, more leaking. Good thing there's a pan up there. So this feels only slightly sketchy. I think this will be good. I'm just gonna stick a jack stand under here just to make sure. But this should be pretty straightforward. Now I can finally see how we get these motor mounts off. I have no idea how you do this in the car. I think I'll just be able to zip this mount off and pull it off, but there's a nut up there somewhere, and I don't know how you get to that. That would not be fun, let me tell you. So this is actually two different pans we need to pull off. There's this black lower one, which is of course the one you'd use to change your oil, but then we also have this separate secondary kind of upper pan, and we need to pull both of those off. As you'd expect, these are just 10 millimeters all the way around. Oh, there's still oil in here. I'm glad I didn't let that go flying. Quite a bit more oil, actually. It's honestly like hard to describe how grimy these bolts are and then how disgusting this oil pan is in every way. Thank goodness for the ultrasonic cleaner. So to get the upper pan off, it looks like we have to undo this big bolt that goes through the bell housing into the lower pan. Then on this side, we got a 10 holding on the transmission line bracket there and there. And then that will kind of just dangle so we can get that out of the way. And then that's all I think I can see on this side. And then the only thing on the other side is just this same bolt, you know, through the bell housing holding that lower pan on. So I'm gonna go ahead and zip all those out. Okay, so transmission lines are loose, that's good. Oh, and now that I got under here, it looks like that baffle plate has to come off too, because when this this upper pan comes off, it's not gonna clear the pickup tube there. So that baffle needs to come off, just a couple of 10 millimeter bolts and nuts there. Okay, so back on the driver's side, there is actually something we need to take off, which is this oil level sensor. So you can see that little arm sticking down there next to the pickup tube. And of course, I'm an idiot and should have known better, and the clip broke as soon as I went to try to pry it off. It came off, but I guess I'm gonna have to buy yet another connector, which means even more delay. It's always something. For this upper pan, it's a mix of 12 millimeter bolts and then 10s. Some of them are 10s like that one in the front. Most of them are 12s, and then there are some hidden up inside there. You can see like this casting, there's a bolt, but it's accessible inside. So this would be way easier if the engine was flipped over, but of course I'm not gonna do that. Then be tight. So I think I got all the bolts out. There's all the ones kind of lined up from where they came out of, and then the 14 out of the back of the bell housing. So I think what I'm gonna do now is just try to give this a little pry right here. Let's see, do we have any separation? No. I'm gonna go ahead and get these engine mounts out of the way. These are 14 mil. No, it went in the oil. I knew that was coming. Damn it. Ah. Okay, so that comes off and the nut is inside of the engine mount. So I think you would have to get this off of the car, and this whole assembly is pretty big. That would be very, very difficult. But now that that's out of the way, I was able to feel up in here, and it seems like there's one little nut possibly like right here that's holding it in on both sides. That feels pretty small, maybe like a 10. But that's probably why our pan's not coming down yet. So there definitely was a hidden nut up there. It is a 12 millimeter. Your boy's over here getting the best on-the-job training he could ask for. Turns out that that little nut that was holding, you know, blocking the pan from coming down is right in here. But to get that out, it means you have to pull the little oil level sensor off. No big deal, but I think now we should be free. So I'm gonna give this a couple of wallops. Not a good sign. I must have forgotten some other bolt. I don't see it though. Where is it? I'm an idiot. There's more bolts in the front. Now I think I got them all. Why won't you come off? Oh, 2 more bolts. What about now? What could I possibly be missing now? Oh, is that finally it? Oh my God, cannot believe it. So this little cover right here covers the flywheel bolts, like the flex plate bolts between the transmission and the crankshaft. And then there's 2 hidden bolts way up in there that I did not know were there. And that is what was holding me up. That's crazy. I'm glad I didn't go trying on it too hard, because I could have broken the whole pan or those bolts in there, and that would have been 10 times worse. Now, will this even come down? What is in my way? Oh, there it goes. Oh. All right, so there's the upper pan off. I mean, look at how gross all this is. This is supposed to be sealant, but there's barely any left. The stuff that's up here, I mean, it cracks off. This needed to be done desperately, but boy, if this was in the car, I think I would just let it leak. That is difficult enough when it's out of the car. Can't even imagine when it's in. But this won't fit, of course, all the way in the ultrasonic cleaner. So I'm just gonna kind of probably do it twice, like once this way and once this way. Brake clean it down and then call it good. I just wanted to get this off, get it cleaned up, and get them resealed. And then the other thing that I need to do is go ahead and pull the oil pickup tube off the pump, which I can now easily get to. You might have been able to just drop the lower pan and get to the pickup tube bolts, but I wanted to do all this anyway to kind of reseal and clean all this stuff up. So we are getting there. What a process to get just 2 bolts off for that pickup tube. Look at that layer of goo. Oh my gosh. Just doing a little bit of pre-cleaning to get the big stuff off first. So then I'll stick it in the ultrasonic cleaner. Now I just gotta spend 10,000 million years getting all this gasket material off all these surfaces. Wow, this is gonna take forever. All right, about 10 minutes of scraping with the brush, and this is looking pretty good. I am happy with that, but now I gotta repeat the same process again. This pan's looking much better. Some of this stuff is like baked in there. I went pretty ham on that, and that won't come out, but we're gonna go ahead and fire this up. Looks a little silly that this is sticking out, but I think it'll work, and we'll just flip it around in a little bit. So, a little bit annoying that it missed just this middle spot because I can't get it to fit in all the way one direction, but you can see it looks so much better. And then this portion under here that was super oily looks really good. Definitely still a little bit more that I can just wipe down, but you can see the difference. Look at that. Maybe, I wonder, could I just get it in there like that? I guess I could. I'd do it just a little bit more like that and get all that varnish off. But this machine is incredible. If you're interested, link in the description. Oil pan looks good. A little bit of glob of stuff, but as you've seen in the other video, this ultrasonic cleaner machine just makes it wipe right off. It's really awesome. And then a little bit of varnish left in there, but again, that just all wipes off. I mean, this pan is cleaner than it would be if I sat there and sprayed it with 2 or 3 bottles of brake clean. So it's just really, really awesome. Next up, we're gonna snatch that oil pump off there, which of course means getting that pickup tube, and then we'll reseal the pump. Then we'll be able to start reassembling this stuff. Put the upper pan back on, reseal that. Need a new O-ring for the dipstick, but that's all easy peasy stuff. This oil pickup is just 2 10 millimeters. And then there's one more right here. And then our pickup tube should, is there another bolt in there? That'll do it. Another bolt. And just like that, it comes out. Easy peasy. Now, one thing I was curious about was whether we'd find any debris in the pickup. And there's a little something right there. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but overall the pickup screen looks good. There's really nothing that I found so far that would lead me to believe there would be kind of junk in the pickup, but I just wanted to double check and make sure. And then our oil pump has a 14 millimeter down here. Then we got a bunch of 12s all the way around the rest of it. And then a 6 millimeter Allen. Oh, and then this pass-through bolt, I think. Wow. Oh, it has red Loctite on it, that's why. Looks like they give us a little convenient place to pry. Perfecto. There she is. Of course, making more of a mess because there's still lots of oil in there. But there's more of that rock solid gasket maker you can see, so definitely good that we're pulling this off. I think I'm gonna leave this alone. I'm not gonna take that assembly apart, even though these are relatively simple gear systems. I just don't think that it's necessary. But I am going to get the crank sensor out, and then we'll go ahead and drop it in the ultrasonic cleaner as well. Another reason why I wanted to do this is you can see that there's an O-ring right there that's separating off the block. It's flattened and squared and hard, and then there's more of that black gasket maker that's just cracked. So definitely a considerable portion of our leak could have come from all that old crusty gasket maker there. And because we had that lower pan off, it's not that much more difficult to get that done. So every day for the last 2 weeks, I've come out here and made good progress, but along the way, I always find new parts and things I didn't anticipate needing. Like for instance, this little extra O-ring right there, and just things like the pickup tube gasket and stuff like that, which just further delays this project. The thing is though, everything is going to be basically as good as it was when it was brand new. I can have total confidence in this thing, no leaks, no problems, and that's why we're going to this depth. So I appreciate all your patience. In the next video, we're going to really get this thing put back together and hopefully drop it back in the car. That's my goal for now. So as always, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're not subscribed, please consider doing so, and I'll see you in the next one.